Welcome back to Fiegel Files. This is Beau Fiegel, your host, strongest lawyer in Texas. Each week we bring you a great mix of life, law, BLSU pride, strongman, and talk about strength stories. Today we have Laura Winget-Hernandez. She's joining me, my second guest overall. She's one of San Antonio's most respected attorneys over the last 20 years, the founder of Parental Solutions, which has developed the BLU House, a one-of-a-kind visitation center just a couple of miles from the Bexar County Courthouse. She's more than just an attorney. She has decades of experience with CPS litigation. She's a mentor, entrepreneur, leader who's built a brand around innovation and empowerment. We're going to dive into how she built it all, the challenges, the mindset, the lessons that come with running her own successful firm and organization. She's not just changing lives in the courtroom, she changes lives and how families reconnect outside of it. Laura Winget-Hernandez, welcome to the Fiegel Files.
Thank you, Beau. Nice to be here.
Nice to be here. So this is our legal heavyweight section. So you've practiced law for 20 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
20 years. My third career.
Your third career. What were the first two?
So I worked for a neurosurgeon for 10 years and took him from paper bookkeeping to computerized bookkeeping. That's how long ago that was. And then I went and trained to be a manufacturing director in HR. I worked for a company that belongs to my stepfather. There were 50 men working there and one woman. I was the one woman on the job. And that was in El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
And I was there almost 10 years. And then when NAFTA hit and we closed our pallet company, my folks said, hey, what do you want to do? I said, well, might as well go to law school. So I came back to San Antonio and went to St. Mary's.
Might as well go to law school?
Might as well.
Was St. Mary's undergrad or law school or both?
That was law school. I did undergrad at UTEP, University of Texas in El Paso. I was a minor.
Fun. Yeah, I love that mascot. That's good. So why the law? What drew you to that?
Well, my big brother practices law, and my uncle practiced law without a license for many years, along with my grandpa at the corner of 19th and Commerce. The neighbors would call him the notario. Uh-huh. And so he would fill out papers and work on immigration documents and do some, questionable, but very much a notary and very much a respected elder in the community. I still have people now over 90 years old come by and bring letters to read because that's my grandpa and my uncle would do that for them because they didn't speak English.
Oh, wow. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to sit here and condone unauthorized practice, but the bar to entry to get counsel is often really brutal for people. And think about most of the time people who need lawyers are, especially the litigation we're going to talk about today in the BLU House, you're probably not at a great point in your life. If drugs are a part or domestic violence is a part of your life or just impoverished in general or immigration's an issue, unlikely that $2,500, $5,000, $7,500 sitting liquid somewhere to hand to someone like me, to someone like you, and just say, here we go. So it's easy to be, oh, you shouldn't do that. Well, it provides opportunities for people to maybe at least break in or get started in a system that otherwise would be quite daunting, I think, for most. So when you started, I want to get to some of these questions, but what was your mind? What were you looking to do as a lawyer? What kind of law were you looking to practice?
Well, because I had been in the pallet industry and I was on the border, and so much experience with people struggling and waiting so long for their documents. When I went to St. Mary's, I was very interested in the immigration clinic, and I took the clinic.
Okay.
And I was trained in immigration. And at 19th and Commerce, I set up to do immigration. And right when I started practicing law and had my license, 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
Well, because the place where I am belongs to my grandmother and my grandfather, my grandmother was very nervous because she didn't want me to do immigration.
Yeah.
Because if you practice immigration, you have to represent anybody that comes to you. Well, when you practice law, you can't just discriminate.
No.
And she didn't want me to possibly have to represent someone that might be suspected of, being a scary person that had come into our country.
Yeah.
And so she was very fearful. She was very old too. But I was her granddaughter, so I said, okay, so we'll do something else. So why did I pick family law? I picked family law because that's the one class I made an A in.
Who was your professor?
That would have been Anna Navoa.
I wonder if she was still there when I was there.
She may have been wise woman and just steady and just good. And she worked in the clinic too. So very much like the work I do with CPS, very experienced with real families. I know we have a lot of big dog family lawyers here that fight over washing machines and multi-million-dollar estates and all that. No, I do the kids. I love the kids. I love fighting about the kids.
Well, here we'll jump into that, and then I want to because
Sure.
the next questions are a little more how people come into law. When you practicing family law now, do you do a lot of divorce? Do you do a lot of custody, or do you do a lot of amicus ad litem work? Kind of how does it break down in your practice right now?
Well, right now, I'm going to say that about 65-70% of my practice is the appointments I take with Child Protective Services.
Okay.
And I now qualify for all the roles.
Yeah.
I do fathers, mothers, and children. And I probably have more children than mothers and fathers.
As clients.
Yes, as clients.
So I want to
Appointed.
break down because I hope people listening don't always know like the specifics. So, God forbid CPS comes in your life and they want to remove the children. So they have to have a basis, obviously, and most of the time the process is the caseworker has an issue. They go to their DA, their intake DA. They make an affidavit, and a judge, based on that affidavit, says there's an immediate need to remove this child. The court grants it. They go get the child, or they already have the child, whatever. And then immediately a lot of things happen, and one of which is both parents get appointed an attorney, the children get appointed an attorney, and right at the outset, there's what we call a 262 hearing. So you share, if I understand, all roles. You've represented parents and now kids in these CPS cases.
Yes, I want to back it up just a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you say the caseworker does. There's actually different divisions in the department. And very importantly, they have an investigations department. There's a 1-800 number that anybody can call. The teacher of the child can call, the next door neighbor can call, the unhappy ex-wife can call, the mother-in-law can call, the child himself can call, the child's best friend can call, and depending on what they report in that 1-800 call, which is supposed to be anonymous, there's a point system, and how quickly do the investigators go, and what do they find out? And if a child is feared to be in danger, truly in danger, they're very aggressive about getting in front of a judge. Let's get to a judge. Let's find out what's happening. And a judge may or may not grant the 262. Often they do, because better safe than sorry. I know that's hard for lawyers to accept sometimes because they're worried about due process.
We'll
and
get to
whatever.
that, yeah.
And we will get there, but always with an abundance of caution for the safety, especially depending on the age of the child. If you're talking about a child that can express themselves, it doesn't go so quick. But if you're talking about an infant that can't answer for themselves, and suddenly they showed up at the doctor's office with broken bones, whoa, that's a scary thing.
Right. Yeah. So there's the kind of two parts to it, and I think just to break it down for people, there's the part where, and there is an emergent situation where they can even take the child without a judge. That's rare, but that it can happen. But they have to go to the judge. They call it ex parte, meaning without another person, and they remove the child from that immediate alleged emergent situation. No process yet, except for the judge stamping whether that happens. But right after that is that 262 process, and everybody's represented, and they get that opportunity to present whether or not that should have been granted. So we'll pause that because I think the cases will kind of reflect that a little more.
Okay.
But you take on all of those roles there. Do you also take on private, and when I say private, non-CPS, amicus, or ad litem representation nowadays?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
When there's a dispute, custody dispute stuff, people ask, well, will you be the amicus? Will you talk to the child? Will you look at the situation and give a recommendation? And I've done that.
Is that what you enjoy more nowadays?
What I prefer to do is represent dads that are fighting to have better access to their children. That's my favorite thing to do.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. So the next question we have is, what advice would you give young attorneys trying to find their identity in law? This came, Ashley, who's here with us today, came up with a lot of questions. And I like it too because, I've got a relationship with you. We've known each other for a couple of years now, had 2 or 3 cases together that I remember. And sometimes it's easy to get bogged down in things we already know. So from an outsider perspective. So you're a new attorney. How do you decide what kind of law to practice?
Well, I think you dip your foot in a couple of different places. If I was going to do it again, I'd look for a firm, and I would see if I could get on with a firm and get some better mentorship that was assigned to me rather than going to find people that were simply being generous with their wisdom. I was blessed. The attorney, Lisa Vance, was very generous with me. Carol Birch was very generous with me. Diane Martinez was very generous with me. And all 3 of those individuals practiced different areas of law.
Yeah.
And Diane Martinez answered one of the best questions for me. I said, how long does it take to feel like you're a lawyer? And Diane told me, she said, I started feeling my lawyer skin about 10 years in.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. I'm one of those folks that likes to get it done quick. And she said, but if family law fits with you, you'll be all right. And I was working with elder law at that time. So, it all fits with what are your life experiences and how do you do with people that work around you. But the family law just really seemed to gel with me.
Okay. It's hard because, first and foremost, you have a family. I have a family. We have responsibilities. We have financial obligations. And so sometimes the financial opportunities dictate what you do, whether you love it or not. But I would encourage people to try to find an area they do have passion for, because it makes the advocacy so much easier. What I love about family specifically, and is I think it's far more diverse than people realize, because you still have to have a great understanding of real estate. There are areas where probate litigation does bleed into family situations, and then definitely understand criminal law and domestic violence as it applies to criminal law, to protective orders, to CPS, into family. So you don't kind of cop out and say, I just do custody, like all of those things there, and immigration to a limited extent. So if you don't have a pretty good understanding, so you get a chance to practice a lot of areas, even business, you get to divide businesses up. So I enjoy that there. But if you're not young, something you enjoy, but making money's hard too.
Yeah, and my kids, because I did this as a grown adult. When I started law school, I had a 6-month-old nursing baby. So I did law school with an infant and a 10-year-old little boy.
Yeah.
And I was, pretty much having it on my own. And my kids were like, Mom, you were supposed to make a lot more money when you got done with this. And I said, yeah, but then I couldn't make it to all your brother's basketball games.
It's such a hard balance.
So,
I had one child when I started law school. My second was born during finals in my second year of law school. And then my third child was born maybe 2 years after I started practicing. And then we had the oopsie daisy baby like 10 years later, but that's another story. All right, if you could go back to that first year, what would you tell yourself?
I wish that the professor that talked to us as we were studying for the bar at the end of law school had talked to me when I went in and said, treat it like your job and practice your hour, do everything hourly the way you do a job. You sign things, you prep things, you go to work whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You get your work done. And at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. But when it's your day, you do your day. He gave us some really good instructions about studying for the bar, and I wish I'd gotten it at the beginning. But I don't think he could have told me much, because I was balancing babies, and that was my priority.
Yeah.
So I think I had it pretty sweet. It was tough. I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis my second year of law school.
Yeah.
I lost half my vision. It was a scary time. I got held up at gunpoint at a car wash right by St. Mary's.
Oh, my goodness.
It was the second year of law school. I was like, what happened the second year? It's like, well, if you make it through, you're going to be done. I took the bar. I passed it the first time. It was a God thing. I was meant to pass. It has nothing to do with me. I think I was meant to serve in this area, and this is where I am.
I would push back. I think it has some things to do with you, but fair enough.
Thank you.
All right. So the question is, after 2 decades in the courtroom, what inspired you to create BLU House? But I want to take a step back and say, what is BLU House?
Well, BLU House is a very special boutique place for parents to visit their kids when they're being protected for those visits. It's called supervised visits. On the low end, we supervise exchanges. Some parents just can't get along enough just to switch their kids when it's the other parent's chance. Some parents have issues, drug issues, mental health issues, domestic violence issues, and they have to be supervised. Then we've now improved what we are able to do and have greater services. We do now reunification, where we have a therapist and therapist interns involved in supervising the visits and helping the parents do self-assessment exams. Why am I having trouble? They make their own assessment. We do the visit. We see how they adjust to that, and we talk about it afterwards. There's 8, 10, 12, 16-week opportunities for parents to improve their parenting skills, and that's what we do with BLU House.
So there's other places that do meet a similar need. I think the two that come to mind are KidShare and Guardian House. What did you look at when you were looking at, and I'm not trying to disparage them in any way, but obviously those existed when you created BLU House. What made you see a need that maybe that didn't fill as well that Blue House does?
Well, Guardian House, a wonderful organization, and the Bear County has really supported them. And just recently, they've been really blessed financially and improved their situation. But the line to get in is long, and the cultural difference between what we have at 19th and Commerce and what they had over there where the Guardian House was a little different. We are more boutique-like. We are a house.
Mm-hmm.
We're the kind of place where if you went home to grandma, you'd walk in this place and you would feel you were at grandma's. There's chocolate chip cookie smell. There's a backyard with a playground. There's a couch to jump on, and it's a house. We also, because of the flexibility and the littleness of us, we do extended time. Guardian House, I think, is very good if these are parents that have to have super visits all the time, and their final order says they've got to have it. So they have a long-term relationship. My goal at Blue House has always been, since inception, was that we would work with a family for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, to just change the vector, improve the situation so our services are no longer needed. It's very likely that sometimes people that have supervised visit will always have supervised exchanges, because the problem is not how they treat their children. The problem is how they deal with their ex.
Yeah.
And if we could get that problem fixed, their kids would suffer so much less.
Mm-hmm.
But until that happens, we continue to do supervised visits, supervised exchanges, and try to encourage parents to focus on what their children need instead of how much they need to resent their ex.
Does Blue House accommodate infants through 17? What are the age ranges? What's most appropriate?
Well, I want to go back to that question that you didn't ask, was how did Blue House get dreamed of?
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
The Blue House dream came from Judge Antonio Chavida's courtroom.
Okay.
When I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to be a lawyer, you take court appointments. So I took court appointments in juvenile. I took court appointments in child support court.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Judge Chavida was in the basement at the courthouse, and I would get appointed to dads who found out, oh my gosh, I have to pay child support on what baby? Find out there's a baby. Then dad says, okay, I have a baby I have to pay for. I want to get to know my baby. And the mom would say, oh, no. You don't know what to do with the baby. So there was no place for them. And she said, well, my mother can watch. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not a good idea. And dad didn't have anybody in his family to teach him what to do. So Blue House was created talking to Judge Chavida about making a place. And the first thing on our mind was to create a place where babies could be introduced to their estranged parent, and their estranged parent could be taught how to change diapers, how to make bottles, how to be patient, how to go visit for a little while, not just once a week or every 2 weeks, but go every other day for about an hour and learn what bonding was all about. And that was really part of the concept at the beginning of Blue House. So yes, at Blue House, as long as the doctor says that the other parent can have the baby for a visit, we take little bitty to 18 years of age.
This is distinctive of, because I think most people, even myself included, would fall in the trap. When you think supervised visits, it's the couple breaks up and dad hit mom, or mom's doing drugs and they're just not safe around. But there's a lot more depth to it. Sometimes it's a situation like you're describing. One person never had the opportunity to be a parent yet, So
there's also mental health. That's the other thing.
Fair, yeah.
And some of the very special cases that we've had have been parents that, because of their military situation, they're here and they may have mental health issues and got orders from other states. And so we provide an environment where maybe special health issues for the child. This child's on a tube and has to come in a wheelchair and has to be specially monitored, an environment for that, or a parent that has mental health issues that's autistic or some way has difficulty adjusting to the child. Because our house is a little environment, it's a very sweet spot for that kind of situation, because those other environments have a lot more children, a lot more activity, sometimes difficult to specialize that window of opportunity. At least that was our experience.
When did it start? When did you found it?
We were founded in 2012, and we started with, because we are Parental Solutions, we started with classes teaching parents of oppositional defiant youth how to get their children to behave without beating them.
Yeah. When it started in 2012, was it what was the focus then, and how has it been able to grow?
It has
time?
always been about teaching parents how to be better parents. There's a big difference between the temperature when water doesn't boil and the temperature that water does boil. It's that 1 degree.
Mm-hmm.
And that 1 degree in water is the same as the 1 degree in the change of the attitude of a parent. If you can change a parent's attitude from, it's okay for me to smack you, to, it's more important that I sit down and listen to you, you can change a family's life. And so that has been at the core of what we thought of at BLU House all along. Parental Solutions has been, if we can help educate the parent that there's just a little, we just need to tweak your attitude just a bit. Obviously, you love your kids, or you wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your expression of love needs a little tweaking. So maybe a little less yelling, a little jerking, a little less demanding, a little more, hey, you know what? Let's go talk about this. Or, you know what? Let me listen to you for a minute. You know what? I am sorry. I did something wrong. Now let's talk about what you did. Let's talk about what I did, and let's come to the table.
Some of this is cultural, right? Like, I think people even my age would say, I was spanked somewhat frequently. Like it wasn't taboo back then. And I think I had a great childhood, but some people had not so great childhoods growing up. So it's foreign to them. You just yell your kids into submission or beat your kids into submission. It's foreign that's inappropriate. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but I do think there's a cultural gap sometimes that you have to overcome. Like, this doesn't work. You're creating a cycle of violence. You're creating a cycle of abuse. And again, I'm not making excuses. I think we should all know better. But at the same time, I do think it's important to acknowledge people are raised a certain way, and you have to undo that and undo some of that learning.
I agree. There are definitely a lot of cultural differences. You also have to recognize that culturally across the board, society has changed.
Yeah.
You had peer pressure. Everybody knew that dad on the block that was a little more harsh with his kid than he should be. We all got spankings, but that guy over there, he grabbed his wife by the hair and dragged her in the house, and that wasn't okay. And, we all knew that. That's the bad dad.
Yeah.
And the other one was, you got in trouble, you were late you went home, dad gave you 3 swats, but dad was disciplined about he dealt with you. Unfortunately, because we don't have the sensitivity to society and our neighbors and the peer of our neighbors, because the whole pool has changed, we don't have that additional check stop, whatever, where your neighbors are checking on you, your teachers checking on you. The law has changed. Things have changed, and because everything has changed, we have to have better eyes for what's going on. And I think that the understanding about physical discipline has changed as well. What does that mean? Dad, you tell me not to hit kids or to hit other people, but you hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's something wrong here. We've come a long way with psychology and science to learn that spanking's not best.
I would also, not a long way to go, but
Sure.
the awareness of domestic violence has probably made a big difference too.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also learned that the tongue is sometimes more harmful than the fist.
I would have to believe that. So what is Parental Solutions in relation to BLU House? Just to explain it to people.
Okay, so Parental Solutions was the name that we began with, and that's the thing that we've listed with the federal government, the state government. Our organization our 501c is under that name.
Okay.
The BLU House is a project created by Parental Solutions. The Parent Project was a project of Parental Solutions, and we taught the Parent Project for the municipal courts for 3 years. We graduated over 154 parents from the Parent Project. I have several parents that will testify, 10 years ago when we first got started, that class made a difference in their child graduating from high school and not graduating, because they learned how to listen to their kid. They just changed some messages. We did that little bitty change that became a big change, sitting down and having a meal once a week together just to check in.
Mm-hmm.
They came to know a whole lot of things about their kids they didn't know.
Yeah.
So educating parents is the core of Parental Solutions, protecting kids by educating their parents.
So can anybody sign up for parenting solutions classes or anything of that nature?
We do have parenting classes now. We have nurturing parenting. Nurturing parenting is offered in compliance with supervised visits, and it's also offered independent. So if you just want to get an education, you can call the BLU House and we can set you up. Even more important, we now have access to a licensed professional counsel by the name of Mary Contreras.
Okay.
She's very experienced, and She's amazing. And she's the one who's doing our special care program now, which is where there's a set number of visits where we see one parent, then the other parent, and then the child. And we try to figure out what on earth has got this household so upside down, and find a way that these kids that don't want to spend time with that parent can say, oh, it's okay to go spend time with that parent, and then help that parent work on their relationship. We have some really sweet opportunities at the Blue House for parents that want to get to know their kids better.
I presume the bulk of your, I'm going to say business, but I mean traffic, comes from court-ordered visitation. Is that fair to say?
The bulk of it does, but it's amazing how many parents have simply come to us because they don't want to pay lawyers to fight over things,
Fair.
but they do recognize that they need to let their child see the other parent. They come and ask us for a solution.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I would hope some awareness. I mean, I'd love for this platform of mine to take off enough to reach audiences that to take advantage. I know the answer to this question, but I'd like you to say it. Why is that approach advantageous? So you're in a hostile breakup, you've got a couple kids, you know there's some issues. Why should they take advantage of that versus come to my office and say, here's $5,000, keep this guy supervised forever?
Well, $5,000 would be a big piece of
Fair,
it.
yeah.
If you took $5,000 and invested it in something for your child, can you imagine? That's a couple of soccer seasons. That's a couple of dance lessons. That's braces.
Yeah.
That's telling your child, your relationship with your other parent is more important to me than my resentment of my ex. That's a huge message to give your child.
Agree. Yeah. We're still important. Hire lawyers for your divorce stuff. All right. I think you answered, but I'm going to ask anyway. Was there one specific moment or case that made you realize families needed something more than just legal solutions? I know that you brought up dealing with the court appointments for the child support cases.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add to that?
I think personal experience.
Just, yeah.
I just want to say I had an amazing childhood. My parents were missionaries, and then when I was 16, my parents decided to get divorced.
Oh, wow.
And talk about turn your world upside down.
I would imagine.
And if that would happen for a person that had such a healthy life, I can't imagine how that disrupts a child that can barely get balance in their life.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah.
Where were you missionary? Where were they missionaries to?
In Juarez, Mexico.
Really?
Yeah, I grew up in El Paso. So, yeah, I crossed the bridge a lot and fed a lot of poor children and learned a lot about impoverished people.
That's amazing. I like this question. It says, how do you balance building your practice with launching a business that's so community-driven? So how do you balance having a law practice of life, but running essentially, is it a nonprofit, the Blue House?
Blue House is absolutely a nonprofit.
Right.
We just got our 501c3 3 years ago. We registered with the state early on, so we didn't pay taxes, but we did charge a lot of money. We're probably one of the most cost-effective supervisory services in town.
Actually, I'll pause to ask you that. You get to the situation where you are court ordered to go and your lawyer's smart enough to utilize Blue House with the court. How do you pay? What are the rates, and are they sliding scale?
If you qualify for state benefits, Medicaid, food stamps, you get to come in at about half rate. And we are now at $50 an hour for your supervised visits. To sign up and get it, each of the parents is interviewed, so we have some understanding what's going on, and each parent pays $50 each for those interviews. And once they've set up their system, then they schedule time with us. I really don't like 1 hour visits. I think they're very unhealthy for children. I think it's very traumatic to start playing a board game and be told 45 minutes in, close it up, we got to go. I continue to recommend both for CPS and Belong and anybody who wants to see their kid, unless they're little tiny. Now, little tinies is not such a big deal, but if you have a child that's able to communicate, you need to give them at least 2 hours. And so, yeah, that's what it costs.
$50 an hour?
$50 an hour.
That's great. You work with families facing incredibly tough challenges, addiction, emotional health struggles, even estrangement. How do you and your team create an environment where healing can truly start? We've touched on it, but I wanted to give you a chance to advocate that question specific.
How do we create an environment where healing can start? Well, I'm going to say we have a prayer team for sure.
Fair.
They're not the people that are working in the house. Those are people that have supported Parental Solutions for over a decade, and they're in the wings, and you don't see them. And the house is covered in prayer. I believe personally the house is surrounded by 40,000 angels. I believe in love. And I think every person that works on my team believes in love. I told you I was raised by missionaries. The first song I learned as a child was Jesus Loves Me. And the other one was red and yellow, black and white. We are precious in His sight. Yeah. So, if you have those tapes in your head, and love is where your mind is when you think of families, you're creating a spot where you want to encourage parents to love their kids. It comes in all different flavors, and if we can encourage love to occur, then we're in good shape.
How do I say this? It's important there because I think most people, and I get guilty of this. You get case after case, CPS case after CPS case, and you get to a place where you're cynical and busy, and you start to maybe demonize the people that need supervision. And I'm not making excuses for people's bad behavior, abuse of kids. That's not the message here. But they're humans too, and most people in that situation, it's not just malicious behavior. It's addiction. It's mental health issues. It's really bad raising culture. It's a lot of these things. And so when you walk in, the court tells you you're supervised to see your kids. That's a blow to your self-esteem, to your ego, to your self-worth. And so you walk into a facility that's like, you feel just this essence of shame. I can't even, a judge won't even let me see my kids without someone on my shoulder. Or you walk into an environment that says you're loved, your kids are loved. How do we work this out? What are the issues? I can't imagine the difference that would make to somebody dealing with that. Me personally, having drug addiction in the past, it's not a pleasant place to be. I was lucky enough to avoid any CPS stuff, but the difference between, just say no, how dare you not know better, versus an AA context, which is, been there, I understand, love you, here's the steps we take, you're accountable. That has to be a big difference to those people, and probably has to have be a lot more effective to treat, especially the people that are ordered to be supervised. I'd have to imagine that matters a lot more to them.
It does, and one of the important trainings that all my staff goes through is trauma training. Science has just figured out, the world's just begun to talk about, the reason why that person behaves the way they have, because that's what they've suffered through, and they scrapped out survival from whatever way they could, and they missed a whole lot of things, and there's a whole lot of damaged goods going on here. If we can address the damage and help them deal with their trauma and speak to them from there, man, I'm sorry that bad things came your way. I'm sorry you're addicted to drugs. On the team, I'm probably the most cynical person. My house director and the people that work for her, that would be Heather Holden, and and the team that works underneath her, probably a little less cynical. But I'm pretty cynical, and sometimes I can't stand the parents. But man, we love the kids, and the kids deserve whatever flavor their parent turns out to be. That's their parent, whether that's a snitty old man or crazy mom. We got to help them figure out how to communicate and have a relationship with those folks.
How many employees do you have?
What day of the week is it?
Is it Tuesday? It's Monday, right? Yeah.
We flex and flow. I think we probably got a solid 12 right now.
Okay, and they vary in what roles? Like what all roles do we have? Do we have counselors? We have just supervisors?
Well, we have Mary supervised. We have a couple of interns. We've geared up our supervisors to now have some folks that have already finished at Our Lady of the Lake or at Cardet Word that are working on hours so they can get their certificate. So they're doing some of our therapeutic supervise. We have another assistant administrator working with Heather Holden. Heather Holden is a logistics genius, and she figures out the clock so that we can have 3 or 4 visits going at the same time, 7 days a week from 8 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. And then we have our supervisors. So because the times at which people see kids, the weekends are packed, but then during the week, we have other little situations. So we have ebb and flow to match the attendance of the parents.
I was actually going to ask, do you have room for more people to use your services right now?
We do.
We do?
Because we don't plan for you to come and stay forever. we want you to come and learn and move on.
Yeah.
I have if you ask me what I think is success, is you came in and you only got to have 2 hours supervised with your kid, and then you got to where you have supervised, but we take you off site and you get to go to the movies, or you get to go bowling or whatever, and then the next step is, you just need supervised exchanges. Oh, and we're doing your exchanges somewhere else. Great. So, stair stepping up from just being highly intensely supervised and observed to almost no supervision at all. I think that's a win-win. And from coming and seeing us for 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, and then you don't need us anymore, people drop off all the time. Sometimes a judge just needs a look, and
Fair.
so they send folks for a little season, and attorneys need a little look, and so they'll be here for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, and then they're back to court, and they figured out they don't have to be supervised.
That's a good point, and this might be a little more wonky to maybe someone, a layperson, but you do custody, I do custody. Sometimes the accusations are kind of ephemeral, or we kind of don't know. So there's a couple roles people can take, and one of them is we appoint an amicus, right?
Right.
And that has an expense. Y'all should be paid. I don't think y'all charge near enough. What's your retainer on an amicus? Be honest.
$1,500.
Yeah, it should be more. I'm brutal. You're nicer than me, but I think we have wonderful colleagues of ours: Diane, Anna Martinez. Oh, good grief, my brain fog. But like, there's 5 to 10. Lisa Duke.
Anna Laura Hessbrook is pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Too.
Yeah, I would say Lisa Duke is, Anna Martinez.
Lisa Duke, yeah.
And Katie Carrasco now, if you know her. She's picked up a lot of these
busy.
roles. Dennis Moreno still does a lot of the work.
Alana Pearsall.
She does too. You're right.
She does a lot of CPS work.
Mm-hmm.
She gets in the trenches.
Yeah.
Ida Rojas will get in the trenches.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's several folks that will do it, and I'm inclined to look at the CPS list before I look at the first floor list.
Really?
Because they have the same experience I do with the CPS thing. So when you've got parents accusing other parents of things,
kind of things,
we kind of have a little different perspective on some of that.
I will confess, I'm very strategic in who I choose because I have a good sense of, I won't name the names, but one of my colleagues is very, very concerned about substance. So if you even throw the word substance of alcohol, like, you're monitored. Another one of my colleagues, like, if it's not blood on the floor, it should be SPO. So we've kind of got an idea. I'm pretty got my own cynicism.
Yeah.
But the reason I was going with that, was, it sounds like you can avoid some of that expense with an amicus if that's what we're doing. If it's kind of like a judge, I just want to take a look. I almost don't believe it, but it's better safe than sorry for these kids. And so another route you could take is like, do the first 2 weekends at the BLU House, get the notes, and then come back to me and let's see if there's any issue.
So this care plan that we have now, it's $1,500. We talk to one parent, we talk to the other parent, we talk to the child, and this is done by Mary Contreras, our therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these interns supervising the visit with the supposedly, difficult parent. And so we get a real look at what's going on between that child and that parent. How much of that is instigated by somebody told them to say bad things, or they really are fearful. And sometimes they are fearful, but if we can dispel some of that fear, we can move the line. And the care program, I think, really does help. And it's, like I said, it's $1,500. I believe it's 13 sessions altogether between the supervised visits and the time with the counselor.
1,500 total between the parties?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole thing is $1,500. And they get a real look at, with a therapist, talking to everybody to find out what's going on. Why is the kid not wanting to see the other parent? What's the issue? And get that resolved.
So I'm learning here too. So as an advocate myself, that is something I'm make sure I understand. Maybe in place of an amicus sometimes, because I know in Bear County we have this lean, get an amicus, figure it out. Would you recommend that in certain situations over using that role? Nothing against our colleagues, but is it a little more targeted?
I think if both parents are inclined to solve the problem and just figure out how are we going to share this time, rather than you get some and I don't, or whatever.
Yeah.
It depends on the animosity level between the parents. But if the parent's focus is the child, I think getting with a therapist and getting to the table together is the best way to handle that. I mean, we can, how us lawyers are, we can fight for the next 15 years. Mm-hmm. We can fight till the kid's 18 and there's nothing to fight over, and there's no more money for their college or their down payment on their new house because we spent it fighting with the other lawyer.
And we know our colleagues that do that on purpose, let's be honest. So I'm going to get to some more questions, but I wanted to ask you, you a number of times since we sat down, care about the kids, have some cynicism. How do you balance, one of the challenges I face, I feel like I'm young, but I'm 40. I've done this well over a decade now. And your role as a lawyer is an advocate. It's a shark. I mean, the point it's, if I get appointed or I get hired by the worst offender in a CPS case, my job's to fight and win that in some capacity. And how do you balance that with the care and love and affection you have for the kids and the result.
So you're 40 and I'm 63. So I'm going to say at 63, I get to decide how much of my bills are going to get paid by practicing law, and whether or not I'm going to concern myself with whether I'm going to say, you know what, I don't want to represent you anymore.
Fair?
Because, yeah, I can't sleep thinking I did something for you that shouldn't have been done.
That's fair. It's not easy. I'm not there. I'm not there yet at that point. And, the bills, my 4 kids, 2 stepkids, and, employees, and, you know what I mean? Like, those have their own, and I got to balance that too. But I would also say to me, and this isn't in opposition to you, but I really feel like the system only works if there's strong advocacy all around. And I want to get to that pretty soon on the case stuff or the CPS stuff I want to talk about. But I do have a fear if someone's advocate for a parent turns into an advocate for the kid against the parent, because I think sometimes it starts to go down a slippery slope and they're not getting the advocacy they need, if that makes any sense. I get some nerves about that. And maybe that's naivety, or maybe that's I'm still too young in it, but I don't know. I witness it sometimes. Like, dude, your job's over there. The judges see through it. People like you do amicus and ad litem work, see through it. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. You talked about you like to represent dads. This question, you've talked about how fathers need me and you have talked about how fathers often need mentorship to build stronger relationships with their kids. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about fathers in family law? I've got a few, but I wanted to hear your misconceptions about fathers.
That they don't love their kids as much as mom does.
I agree with that. I also don't think, especially in our county, there's that much favoritism towards moms. I think they're somewhat equal. I'm not sure how you feel.
Depends on what judge you show up.
That's not unfair. We won't name. I feel like there's been a push towards 50-50 in temp orders lately. Certainly, I felt, this is all anecdotal, we have our own amount of cases and own experiences, but they have equal rights. I think it's important for people to hear that. The child's born, as the mom, you don't have preference over the dad, or vice versa. The only time I tell people is, like, especially infant to 6 months of mom's breastfeeding or something like that, past that, it's wide open. And I think fathers and mothers should realize when deciding to break up that that's an equal person, that's an equal parent there. So any other misconceptions you thought of for dads?
Well, if you're going to think about 50-50, I think you better be sure those kids have a lawyer. Because
you're not wrong.
Because, yeah, mom and dads have 50-50 rights, but guess what? That kid has 100% rights. I have 100% right to be comfortable when I go to bed at night and be prepared to get ready to go to school the next day. And which one of my parents is going to make sure that the scenario fits? And 50-50 may or may not work.
I meant more equal under the law when we're talking about custody. Not that necessarily means 50-50 possession.
I get that.
Yeah.
But when you and I say those words, we understand. But the public, when they hear 50-50, they think, oh, I get Monday, and you get Tuesday, and I get Wednesday.
Fair.
And they don't even think about that flip-flop every time you move that child from one place to another, unless both situations are easy to step into, then it's just more trauma for your kid.
I tell people all the time, because and actually this goes to the fathers too, because a lot of potentials will call and they're like, courts hate dads. Like, often people, the court looks at the child first, and if you're working 60, 70 hours a week, it doesn't make sense to say I want primary, unless there's some huge issue on the other side. It's not that you're being punished, it's that where's the kid's going to thrive more. And if someone's available to take and pick up, if someone's available to be at all the sporting events, the gymnastics events, or whatever, you're asking a lot of a judge to say, I know that parent's at home available for the kid, but you should have it doesn't make a lot of sense. Or 50-50 in those instances. So I think that's a fair, but careful, because oftentimes traditional households, moms aren't always working jobs that they're out of the house.
Right.
And so dads are like, well, this is unfair to me. Like, well, it's just the reality. I mean, what do you want to hear? You're working 60 hours a week. She's able to be home. Why would a judge say otherwise? I think that's
what my mama said? My mama said, life's not fair.
Life's not fair. I say that all the time. I get this a lot, because it's like, it's not fair. Like, I never thought fair was part of justice system at all. My kids will say it, nothing is. More serious, when I was in AA, more frequent, a buddy of mine says, thank God there's no justice. Because if there really was, and you looked at your own behavior, where would we really be? if you face the full consequence, I'm talking me, for the full consequence of every action I've had, I probably wouldn't like the result. Maybe we should be more grateful. It's not fair. If you were very honest about yourself, your actions and your consequences you had. So that's how I feel about it. But yeah, no. We've danced around it, but what role do you think the legal community should play in encouraging healthier parent-child relationships beyond the courtroom?
I think directing your parents to get education, to show them, we go to CLEs and we get educated about a lot of different opportunities. We get freebies. We get all kinds of freebies about trauma training, about, drug abuse, about attendance at school, about how to go online and learn things. Encourage your parents to get educated and encourage your parents to realize that what's wrong between you and your ex needs to not spill over on your kids. And your kids are kids, and they don't need to be the sounding board. They don't need to be the message delivery person. They don't need to be the check delivery person. They don't need to hear about how the child support check didn't come in. Oh, another one I can't stand is the child support belongs to the child.
Nope.
The child support does not belong to the child. And when you teach a child that that's their child support check, oh my gosh, it makes things crazier.
I think the thing I would encourage for the legal community, but family law advocates, look, I'm a business person. I'm here to make money. I've never pretended otherwise, and give advice. But give your advice that these parents need to think long term. And of course, the health, safety, emotional welfare of your kids. And if you're not thinking about that, obviously that's problematic. But even if you're just being cynically self-focused, you have to co-parent with this person till they're 18.
Yep.
And honestly, forever. You've got it. I don't understand. So if you create a situation where your kid resents you for this, to get an extra 100 in child support or pay an extra 100 less, or this day of the week here, or split this extracurricular, how many of these kids at 18 are like, bye, I'm doing my own life now, or God forbid they have trauma that needs all kinds of help and more problems. If you want a long-term life and relationship with your kids, how you act now is going to affect that a lot. And if you're just talking dollars and cents, it's a lot more expensive for me to fight like crazy over that nickel here, or that child support here, or that day there, unless you can find a reasonable agreement. And so I try to tell clients, like, look, I'm here. If you want to pay for my kids' braces and my kids' next car and me to upgrade my office, by all means, I'll take all the money you got. But it's not helping you. You're not really helping yourself. What are we really advocating for?
Yeah.
So I think if you think long term, again, even without being the moral part of it, which is right, I think you're better off just, think long term with his parents. You got to deal with this person for a long time. So
Greed can be very, very harmful to children.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. All right. Can you share I love this. Can you share a story that really captures what BLU House is all about? What's one anecdote that you have, that one of your favorite success stories from BLU House?
So if you come into my office, you're going to see a picture of a little boy holding a one of those blocks that have the ABCs on them, and then there's a pair of hands around them. That painting was given to me by a young man who had bonded with his baby in California when it was newly born. And he was with the mama and the baby in California through about, 12, 13 months. Just tight, just loved, adored, changed diapers, was there. And he woke up one morning and mom had packed the bags, taken the baby, and disappeared. And he had to follow that woman across the Southwest, through New Mexico, through El Paso to San Antonio. And he didn't get to see his baby until his baby was, 6.5 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And because of the things that happened through the what she called stalking from California to Texas, he had to have supervised visits when he got to the BLU House, and very little. By the time I was done with his case, he was primary conservator of the child because mom had attempted suicide while the child was in the house. She had mental health issues, and he'd known it all these years.
Yeah.
And now that little boy is an honor student, junior, senior in high school, something like that. Now gets regular visits with his mom, is full-time taken care of by his dad, and he's got a great life.
That's
and
amazing.
so that's the kind of story that I love to have at BLU House.
That's wonderful. Um, I'm going to skip to this. And this affects me. I'll say the legal world can be very emotionally heavy. How do you protect your own mental health and navigating helping others? And I think both of us deal in this area of law, and it's not pleasant. So how do you manage your mental health when you see the things you see?
Best advice I ever got was tell God thank you every day. And you can start your day with 10 thank yous, and I have a lot to say thank you for. I can deal with what's in front of me, and I hand it over to the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm a believer. We do not preach at the Blue House. We are hands and feet. If you ask me, I'm happy to share my faith, but you do not come to the Blue House and get people to be preaching at you. We don't do that. But if you want to know, I will tell you that I believe that God is love. If you will talk to God and experience His love, your life will change.
It sounds a lot like my experience in AA. Like we do gratitude lists in AA. There. The only other thing I'd add that may be more secular, but boundaries matter too for mental health.
Amen.
Yeah, I don't know where your particular ones your practice, but I have a relatively hard cutoff at 5:30. I mean, if there's an emergent, like when I say emergency, I can do something about it. You can hit me up, but usually, like, I'm not calling you back till the business hour the next day. And again, that's not for anti-client. It just is a reality that, that I've got to exist somehow. I would imagine too. You make time for. I think you dropped off. You had a little grandchild with you today.
Yeah, she's probably in the parking lot wondering where her grandma is in a few minutes.
Oh no,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
No,
okay.
She's good. She went down the street to check out some rabbits, so
Okay.
she's in good shape.
All right. Well, we'll get through. I'll get to the last few things. Okay. I sincerely appreciate your time. So we'll wrap up when you're ready. What's next for Blue House?
Well, we're just making what we do better, and as soon as we are, and I don't think we'll ever be like absolutely everything we want to be. You always want to improve,
Of
improve,
course.
improve. We are looking at doing supervised visits in other areas. We would like to, and we are working with an organization called Christ Coalition, which is nonprofit organizations that service the community in a lot of different ways, from housing to drug and alcohol training to food and clothing, just all the nonprofit ministries that are available to help people. But we're also working with churches that want to offer supervised visits, because a lot of people are not in Bear County. They're elsewhere. And to put up a supervised location someplace else is very costly.
Mm-hmm.
So we can send our supervisors to churches where their volunteers can use those Sunday school rooms that are only used for 3 hours on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
We can use them to let parents visit their kids, say, in Elmador or Castroville or further away. And we can go, I can send my staff to go show them how it's done, and let those families that have to have visits in those areas not have to travel so far. Because especially with the CPS and Belong situations, kids travel an hour and a half, 2 hours in a car to spend an hour with their parent and to go back for 2 hours. I mean, they got traumatized in the first place. Why are we making them go through all this to see their parent who already has some issues, or they wouldn't be in a case?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get them to go to the neighborhood church and have their visit with their parent and have a 2-hour visit, and surround them with the good people of the church that want to host them and help them meet those needs, I think we've really been a win-win. And so that's a vision that we have to expand what we do at the Blue House.
Have you been able to do that yet?
I have 2 churches that are working with us presently.
Where are they at? Which locations?
I want to say one of them is outside of Castroville, and I couldn't tell you the other.
Okay. So now, if I'm practicing in Comal, eventually Comal, Kendall, Seguin, it's easier to say we can use Blue House services because we can reach out
Right.
there.
We're working on making those relationships.
Okay.
And if you tell us there's an environment where there is one, we know how to reach out and find a place that could use us.
So how do attorneys, I think would be the most, family attorneys, just do they reach out to you directly, call the Blue House? If they want to utilize, they've got a case where this is appropriate, what's the best way?
The Blue House.
The Blue House?
Just contact the Blue House.
Contact the Blue House. All right, we'll tell that Legal Heavyweight. Hey, from Legal Heavyweight, this is our re-rec the case portion. I'm going to do it a little different. I've got some cases here. The one I have, and I've got the copy on the top for you, ma'am. It's a interest of DJ G, a child. It's a sort of, I hate to say run of the mill because these are human beings, and but it's a DFPS case. So this particular one out of Houston, child was born to a heroin addicted mother. and you don't have to read it. It's okay.
No,
I put it.
there's just a particular fact I'm looking for. That's all. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
But the child born to a heroin addicted mother, the dad was only tangentially involved. He actually gets involved after CPS takes the child, and they get the service plan. Mom never had a prayer with the service plan, and actually, it'll be important to take a step back. And I don't want to keep you too long, but for parents who deal with CPS, once the child is removed and the litigation starts, the actual petition the state of Texas files is a petition to terminate your parental rights.
Right.
But and the correct thing, or the legislature has said that you have to make every attempt to reunify that child prior to terminating. And so the mechanism for that is a service plan, and you have to work those services. And so the service plans are usually some things I think kind of obvious. Drug testing if you have a drug issue, domestic violence classes, usually some kind of psychiatric or psychological testing, and then follow up with therapies for those things. Oftentimes show employment, and then maybe certain other classes. But that's usually it. I mean, it's usually, I've never, and I have a lot of criticism of CPS, the courts, but I've never seen a service plan that I thought was on its face onerous. I think in execution, sometimes it becomes more onerous than people think, or there's sometimes I've felt like I've seen, they say the service plan's one thing and then they make it up later, or it's left so ephemeral that it's the caseworker saying what services weren't. But anyway, so I think what I wanted the direction to go, because I think this is actually a point we might have some disagreement, but I wanted to hear from you, is first off, if you've got a parent dealing with this, what are some strategies? What would you tell them? Let's start there. The child's removed, the 262 is granted. How would you help a parent in dealing with CPS at this point?
Well, the first thing usually in the services they ask for is the psychological assessment. And parents freak out about that. I've never seen a shrink. What's a shrink going to do? Like, honey, there's something going on.
Right.
We wouldn't be here unless there was something broke. Something happened. You got traumatized in life, and you're responding to it. You're reacting to it instead of responding to it. And we need to teach you to respond instead of react. And the only way we can get that figured out is you go see this mental health expert. Now, when the expert comes back and we don't like what they say or we don't believe what they say, we'll at least get a clue about what's broken. So let's go find out what's broken, and then let's find out how the department wants to fix it. And it has changed a lot, Beau. We now do our family group conferences immediately after the 262, and everybody's supposed to be there. They used to not be so adamant that it get done quickly and that everybody be there, and that we can now modify that service plan to really be focused on what's broken. So I advise my clients, if a 262 got granted against you, the best way to get it done with, go get that evaluation, find out what services are necessary, and get your foot in it. And if your worker didn't give you the list of places, then you call me. And I tell my clients, you call me once a week. And it doesn't matter if I answer the phone or not. You leave a message, I'll know that you called, and I'll know that you're still in the plan. If you don't call me, I'm going to bet that you're not calling your worker either, and you're not doing the plan. So odds are you're going to lose your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
I do something similar. I have you met Heidi, my paralegal, but we do a weekly check-in, like how's the service going? Let us know just what services are being done. And do you have a problem? Again, we may disagree here, but I've had some issues, in my opinion, with caseworkers not really following up or moving the bar on the services. But if you have consistent communication, those problems tend to go away. All right, here, you gave us these 10 things to do. We have done these 6 this week, these 7. When are you asking for drug testing? Whatever. And usually if you have that clear communication, I think some of those issues go away with the caseworker in my mind there. So that helps a lot.
I have always been taught the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yep.
And it is so true.
Absolutely.
I don't care. I want your caseworker to call me and tell me, will you please tell your client to quit
Stop
calling
bothering
me
me.
so much?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's
Yeah.
close the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have an opinion, and it's okay if it disagrees with mine, about so when you have the child removed before the 262, and I'll break it down one more time. I don't know if we went through this further, and we got to edit it, we can. But whatever happens with the referral to CPS, a teacher calls, a daycare worker, a church worker, a neighbor, the child, the referral comes in. The department begins to investigate if it's serious enough to leave AR to the true investigations, and they see a danger. And in one way or another, whether emergent or through an affidavit, a court grants the removal, and the child is removed from that parent's care. That triggers the appointment of representatives for both parents, the appointment of a representative for the child, and that sets a mandatory hearing. And I can't remember if it's 14 or 20 days, but 14 days. And there's a mandatory, we are calling it a 262 hearing. And the legal purpose of that hearing is to essentially justify the removal with a very high bar. If you read the code, it's an extremely high bar of, a clear and present immediate danger to the health, mental, physical, or emotional welfare of the child. So extremely high bar. And if granted, meaning if the state can justify that removal at the hearing, a full evidentiary hearing, then a lot of things happen after that. One, the state becomes the managing conservator of your child. They've been removed from your care. Two, you get a service plans to work, and used to be before September, failure to do that service plan on its own could be enough to terminate your rights. That's a little different after the legislative session, and I actually don't know how that's going to work. I'm not really sure mechanically what happens now, if I'm being honest. I think that creates more problems than it fixes. So it is critical, if you're an advocate on the parent side, that 262 is everything in my mind. One, you want to beat it. But two, if you can't beat it, what I like to do is I want to limit those services, because the court can mandate the services at that 262. One of the things I found is a lot of colleagues of mine, and I love and respect, are just agreeing to the 262. So sell me why you would do that, because I feel like that's flirting with, that's really tough for me to understand as an advocate. Why not take that free shot to beat that case back? I'm not talking about doing the best for your kids, and I know that's your passion, and it should be. But why would I ever agree to a 262? Why would that ever be the right thing to do? What do you have to lose?
What do you have to lose agreeing to a 262? Well, if they lost the 262, the department's still going to be breathing down your neck. You're still going to have to do services. Mm-hmm. Something's going to happen. And they're going to come back at you. If the chances are you're going to come back and lose the next 262, you might as well go ahead and jump in. And what I ask for instead of a lose to a 262 is, can we do an MTP instead?
Right.
And that's what we should be having happen. And now with this TFF, this new thing where they do the therapy and they go into your house, that's another option as well. So the distance between we're taking your kids and we're going to terminate your rights and we're going to go into your house and help you solve your problem has gotten a lot closer. So you're not so bad you're going to lose your kids, but we are going to breathe down your neck, and we're going to help you solve your problem.
All interrupt to say MTP is a motion to participate. So there's an interim stopgap that courts do, which I actually kind of like a lot. And that is, it forces you work by court ordered to work these services with the department, but it is not a removal of your kids. And it doesn't trigger that termination suit. It doesn't trigger those fears. And it's a chance to get rid of this before that termination suit comes in. And I've done that as well. You go to the 262, the end of it, the judge rules, I'm denying 262, but I'm granting a motion to participate in services. Sorry, but I wanted to clarify for people.
That's true. And mostly that works when everybody comes to the table and says, there is a problem, but the problem is not as scary as you said the problem was. Sure. Or we have found family that will come help and remedy the situation. And that's usually the best way to keep there from being a 262. Find that person in your family that's willing to be, that's the good sheep, the one that's always
Sure.
the person that you go to. That's the person that is home. That's the person that's kept their job. That's the person who's not been on drugs. That's the person, when you have a problem, that's in your family who you go to.
Yeah.
That's where y'all go for Christmas dinner. That's the person that's the stability in your household, in your family.
So everything you said, I agree with. You walk into that room, you're the court-appointed or retained attorney, and I want to ask that question in a minute. Any alternative except agreeing, in my mind, to the state's the managing conservator, I'm getting supervised, and that's it. I would fight for any alternative. But what I've seen is it's just, well, just agree, you'll work services, you'll be fine. And I don't have that experience. Now, maybe I'm just being cynical in my own right of the department. But it sounds to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you're still advocating. Like you're saying we can do emotion participate, or we can do a safety plan, or we can limit here, or let's wait. Let's. I've had cases where let's continue the 262. You investigate a little further and let's find alternatives. Anything. But what I struggle with is agreeing to that the removal was valid, triggering the 262 provisions, creating the service plan, and going forward. Is there any reason I would ever agree to that as an advocate?
You know, in the other half of the interview, we talked to you earlier about how do I feel about the kids and how do I feel about the parents. That's a very difficult line, and I know the judge's bar is, and the bottom line for the judge is the safety of this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So what if I rule wrong on the 262 and you're without your kids for a few weeks? If that keeps you from harming your child, and us making sure that child wakes up tomorrow, take me on appeal.
You know, I get it. You know, I'm going to read, this is from the case, and you know this, but I want people to hear, because CPS cases are fundamentally, I think, the most different kind of family law cases. Every other family law case, there's one concern, and one that involves kids, best interest of the kids. It's not true with CPS cases. It's a co-equal concern with the parents' fundamental right to be parents, and a constitutional concern that goes with it. And this isn't just to me a libertarian, get the government out of my way. There's a real fear I have. So I'm going to read, this is from the case, and you know these. A parent's right to the companionship, care, custody, and management of his child is a constitutional interest far more precious than any property right. The United States Supreme Court has emphasized the interest of a parent in the care, custody, and control of his child is perhaps the oldest and most fundamentally liberty interest recognized by the court. Likewise, the Texas Supreme Court, that this natural parental right is essential, a basic civil right of man, and far more precious than property rights. And it goes on. And the reason I bring it is that attitude I do run into with courts, where you've got cases that are flirting with borderline. And if you're a judge, I kind of don't blame you. I'm going to be safe than sorry. The word that drives me crazy is I've got concerns. I don't care. The code never says concerns. You know, they haven't proven it. But again, I do defense work. My brain is, if they don't meet it, they don't meet it. So that's tough. So I understand that you're a child advocate. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, right? That this parent, didn't do the drug test. This parent was cagey when we tried to interview them. This was reported that mom was beating dad, or dad was beating mom. I want to look into it more. I understand that. But from the advocate themselves for the parents, my struggle is when they start to agree. That's where I get nervous, if that makes sense. So,
And thank heavens that there's attorneys like you that have that attitude. It keeps us a little bit more balanced. But do you realize how recently women were men's property?
It's tragically recent.
Okay. So if they felt that way about their wives, how do you think they feel about their kids? And how much of that attitude is still prevailing in the way we deal with human beings in the world? Our children are just our property in so many ways.
I'll go a step further. Texas is hard because, but we're a state that, like, you will be able to homeschool with no oversight. We're a state that you don't have to get any vaccinations if you don't want. We are a state that treats very precious, and I agree and disagree, parents being able to parent kids, any religion, any thought, your medical care. So you have that, so that you have that whole, but that kind of creates that tension too with how do you really treat your kids? But they're people, they have rights themselves. So I get it, but that's the tough thing. So do you have an opinion when you're if someone's facing this, they get court-appointed counsel, they're entitled to it. Should they retain somebody? You're a parent. Should they retain somebody?
If they have court-appointed counsel and they shouldn't use the court-appointed and go hire their own?
Right. Do you have an opinion on that?
I guess if you told me who was appointed. But I'm going to say 85% of my colleagues are going to be, they're either thinking, okay, there's something rotten in Denmark here about that's going to harm this child, and they're not going to say, hey, fight the 262. You know what? Let's just do the services. And then there's a couple of my colleagues that they're going to fight.
There's some ferocious ones.
There's some, that's not me. And I'm quick to tell my clients when they come see me, we could fight this, but based on what I'm saying, because we get to talk to them independently. So
Yes.
what they say to us is not, we don't share with the world. So I say, you know what, you probably need to do this because you're going to get some free stuff that you wouldn't get unless you were doing this. Look at what I can get you for free if you agree to this 262. These people get your kids in daycare. These people get your kids to the doctor's office. We can go get your kids checked, their teeth checked. We can make sure you have all that stuff. There's a lot of benefits to being in a CPS case. So I'm inclined to sell the benefits of being in the CPS case. And not only that, you're a little worried about your child's daddy and how they behave. If you say that you'll do it so you check your behavior, we can get a check on their behavior. You think he's
Fair.
using? Let's go get him drug tested. If we agree to drug test, he's got to agree to it too. Because if you agree, then they're going to work harder on kicking his butt instead of yours.
No, that's
So-
that's why I wanted someone else on, because I might have a perspective that has got some cynicism built over time, but that's what I want to hear. What are the benefits? Well, here you go. You do have services available. Sometimes that gets to be a dirty word. It's not. There's free counseling and psychological testing you'd never be able to afford without this opportunity. Your kids are fed, housed, taken care of. If you're in a terrible spot, even if it's not your fault, you're getting a check on everybody. So no, that's fair. And I have had cases that get dismissed 3 to 6 months in. It's rare, but it happens. So if you're all good, so I see that, but I struggle. So
Beau, I want to make a point that
Yes.
we haven't talked about, and that's the people that use CPS to their advantage in private cases where they make false accusations against the other side. In those situations, in fact, I represent or work of counsel with some attorneys that don't do CPS work to help them when those situations occur. And I really wish that the law would be enforced about that, because making false reports is a crime. But the department has been so slow to prosecute those. There's people that have used it as a tool. And I think people that use it as a tool like that to beat the other side should pay a whole lot of money, because taxpayers are paying a whole lot of money to defend against that garbage.
it's absolutely true, and it's absolutely a problem, and nothing's more frustrating than like a judge gets stuck to like freeze. I had a case. It was a writ. It was post-summer, very typical. Dad kept after July 31. I got a problem. Call CBS, and we all knew it was bogus. We go on the writ, and I love this judge, and I won't name her. Continued the writ of habeas, which you can't do. It's ministerial, and says, well, let's wait on CPS. I'm like, one, there's nothing filed. There's no TRO. It don't matter. But more importantly, it turned out to be BS, and then I was able to get fees on the habeas. But yeah, it was fallacious completely, just from the start. And this poor kid waited an extra week to see her mom. It happens a lot, and I understand the policy position of you don't want to discourage people from making reports. I understand that sincerely. That's why there's anonymity. That's why and that's why you want to be reluctant to prosecute. But we know when it happens, and I agree with you. We have to treat that, because I would go the other way. It creates more people like me when it's being abused, right? Now you've got people like me who are cynical, that are trying to beat back every case because like they're all bogus. They're not, I know. But that's tough. You've got kids that are, I can't imagine, I've seen it, you've seen it, kids with broken orbital bones. You've got kids watching mom getting shut up with needles, kids their parents getting beat, kids getting into their parents' drugs, having men come in and moms prostituting to make the ends meet. That stuff is present in our community all over. CPS is necessary and saves kids. And I want to say that because I know I'm so brutal on them otherwise. But when you start filling their work up because you don't like the other parent, you're taking away from those kids that really need these places to go, and that's it. And then that is where you and I come in as advocates. We can go to court and get TROs. There are places to do that if you have a case for the kid there, but if it's not CPS worthy, you better stay away. And if you're abusing that system, you wish there was more recompense for it.
I think it should be a big punishment, a big financial hit on the
Yeah.
parent that uses it, because the department is supposed to be doing a very important job. It's like violating the firemen. You don't go make fake fires. The fireman's there to put out the real fires. You don't do that. You get in big trouble if you do that with a fireman.
I remember as a kid, that was the main thing. Fake fire alarm, you're
Whoa.
expelled.
There you go.
Yeah.
It should be the same way. It should be the same way. And what did that parent that put their child through that do to their child? The mental, remember we talked about the harm of the words versus the fist? those words that manipulated that situation and created a CPS situation for a child that has no knowledge of CPS and should never be introduced to CPS is now in a world that they're completely lost in.
And let's be real, what happens, like, because it's important. That report is made. Oftentimes, the worker will go to the school without telling anybody and interview that kid first because they need the unbiased. They have to do that. Again, I may not like the department in a lot of ways, but I want them to do their jobs effectively. So now the child's interviewed at school. They're embarrassed. They've got some stranger asking them some personal questions, especially depending on what the allegations are, whether dad's doing drugs or touching them inappropriately. God forbid it's an allegation of sexual abuse, and sometimes they get subjected to those kind of examinations. Again, and if you're doing that false, special place in hell, but also you hope there's more advocacy. And I will agree with you. I don't know that I've ever seen enough reaction from the courts. I have had situations, though, where our judges, who I do love and respect, have my issues with every one of them, but I do love and respect. When they notice it, they don't fine specifically, but all of a sudden custody can swing the other way, or something can happen that you lose our credibility. So there has been some in my experience, but not a lot. My struggle with the CPS, and in Bexar County, I don't remember how long ago, but 20, 30 years ago, Judge Sakai at the time was instrumental in creating associate courts to handle the CPS cases. So we have 14 elected civil district courts that would handle family law cases. And in the past, I think prior to either of us practicing, a department, the DA's office who represents the Department of Family Protective Services, has to petition and go to the same 14 judges me and you have to go to when we want our TROs or our protective orders. And they have to follow through the same presiding system for settings and everything else. So for whatever reason, they decided they don't have enough, that's too inefficient for them. And they got funding. I don't know if it's federal or otherwise, how they did it. And they created at the time now there's 3 associate courts that only handle CPS cases. So there are 3 judges now in our building, Judge Montemayor, Judge Burley, and Judge Perales. That's all they do. They're associate judges, which has its own fun because you can de novo, and we can get into that. For me, I understand getting the overflow of cases. I understand, I think, maybe, thinking you want them to be specialized. My experience is I feel they get a little rubber stamp to the department. I feel very uphill when I'm retained in these cases. Now, if you disagree, that's totally fine. But where do you stand on that? Because what I've seen happen is now you have people who take court appointments a lot. That's their only role. They're kind of dependent on that. And I wonder, too, if they're fighting tooth and nail and they're clogging this calendar up and they're sending discovery motions and they're setting summary judgment motions and they're doing depots, they're not getting paid enough for that one. No advocate's getting paid to do that that's not retained. And so I think you can hear my tension there. I feel like you have a court by design is great, but once you see case after case with these kids being harmed, well, you get a case that's borderline. Well, your brain is saying what you just said, better safe than sorry. Well, but now you got a parent that maybe shouldn't be in this situation. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's where I get hit.
So I'm going to say what you said is not true. There are actually now we do discovery. We demand discovery of the department, and some of the legal fights we are actually now compensated much better than we were.
Well, that's great to hear.
That changed. I want to say it's been 2 years now that it's changed. Thank you, Judge Sakai, who was a part of that. It was very slow in coming.
Who's now county judge, by the way, so he was elected. Sorry,
right.
But yeah.
And it's still not quite what it should be, but it is a world better than it was.
Okay, I do like hearing that.
And there are cases in which it's appropriate to do all that, and it has been. But the reality of it, Beau, if you're on the 3rd floor for a CPS case, you're there for a reason, and it usually has to do with the fact that your child has been harmed or neglected. If you feel like you're not being dealt with justly by the attorney that was appointed to represent you, go hire a lawyer. Go see what a private lawyer will do with your case. And even private lawyers that come in and say, "Oh, wow, you know what? No, we're not going to do all that because." 1, you don't have the resources to pay for what it takes to make it happen, and that's a big piece of it.
It is.
And 2, you are smoking a little too much marijuana.
I agree with you, I think, most of the time. It just, I've had some rough experiences case by case where I'm just, the last one, obviously I'm not going to name anything, but it was like supposition built on supposition. You know, these young parents had two kids that had passed away, one from SIDS and one from the flu. What is it called? That kid flu. It affects kids. Rhino. I feel terrible.
Rhino, RVS.
RVS, and it's just horrid. Like, you know, just a lot of people get it. And there was a brief investigation. Nothing happened. This is years back. They have two more kids. Mom had some major mental health issues, and the kids should have been removed at that point. The kids after that, under 100%. But she gets pregnant during the pendency of that case, and they had been working their services completely, and the child's born, and like they went out of their way to remove the new child. Like, there is no harm to that child. You can't prove it. And I won in the 262, got it down in a motion to participate, and they asked for like 3 rehearings. The judge eventually agreed with them. I had to go back to de novo that to go to another 262. I won again, and then they rehearinged again. It was just miserable. And I'm like, why do y'all have such a for again, nothing had ever happened to that child. So it was a frustrating experience, and I just get a bunch like that. And you know, a lot of things happened. I remember I was representing them on the initial case before the child was born, and they filed the new. I asked everybody at one of the conferences, what do they call them? The staffings we had. Mm-hmm. They're about to have a child born. Is anybody, kids attorney, state attorney, caseworker, have a problem with them having them? Because I need to be ready for that. No, we don't. We're fine. You sure? You're fine. I mean, it is what it is. There's no harm. Cool. The referral's made automatically because they have a case going. I meet with the woman here, the new caseworker, said everything's fine, and they remove behind my back. They do a removal affidavit without notifying me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, she's represented. You can't do that. And she literally like hid behind. It was infuriating to deal with. And I think I say that to say everything you say is fair. You want to protect kids. But there's this vibe I get of untouchable from the department. They aren't challenged. And they feel like they're going to get rubber stamped. And when you beat them, they act like the worst losers in the history of mankind. And it is like, dude, like, and what I feel like is sometimes they don't get the pushback sometimes from some of our colleagues that retained guys will sometimes go after. That's not to say they're not great lawyers, because I know they are. We talked about Alana Pearsall, we talked about Dennis and some other colleagues. I'm trying to remember her name because I want to give her credit. But another one of mine, she was in the light on the case. We didn't agree, and it was nasty. And now she's a parent, and she's doing what I do. I'm mean. You know, I de novo. By the way, de novo, what's cool with these associate courts is because they're not elected, you get a result you don't like in the 262 or final, within 3 days you file a motion, you just do it again. Free try in front of the district court. So anyway, long-winded way to say my experience is pretty tough because I feel like I'm fighting uphill in a culture that doesn't look at the law and say, if we can't prove it, these kids need to go home. But again, I wanted to have someone else on who's advocating a different way. I think that's important. So.
Well, it takes a little of both of us to make the system work. I'm sorry that the bulk, you've had so many experiences to the negative that you have.
Yeah.
But guess what? All those kids that went through those cases in which you won, they're doing great.
There.
And we don't have to worry about them being found buried under a house.
No, that's fair. Yeah. And I want to be clear. For every case I have where I complain and the department overreaches or something, I don't want to know how many cases where kids could have been left seriously injured, neglected, malnourished, or dead because someone didn't get involved. And I do know that role exists, and I do appreciate that danger there. So that. Anything else you want to add to like advocacy for CPS, how to handle CPS's cases if you're a client or even a colleague? Anything you'd like to bring up to that end? Well,
I would say take care of your family in a way so that you don't have to have a CPS case. Get some help. Go to church. Get a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to that person in your family that has their act together. Because everybody has one of those, or most families have one of those. Go talk to that person and say, we're having a hard time. Can you give us some direction? There are some wonderful nonprofits in town that will give you some guidance. Christ Coalition is one of those. The San Antonio Hope Center on Jenner McMullen.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started doing my work, I was working with them, and I was a mentor. And Macon Legacy has built an amazing nonprofit organization. It was already started and was doing very well, but it has grown, and they have case management, and they help people deal with the housing issues and drug addictions and financial literacy. The biggest problem with CPS cases is usually neglect, mean, abuse is horrible, and
Yes.
that's why they need to be, the big policeman with a bat.
Mm-hmm.
But the neglect piece is the part that has to do with not having enough money, not
Yeah.
having enough food, not being wise to how to take care of business. So, get yourself some help, and don't be afraid to ask. Go to church. I don't know a priest or a pastor that won't direct a person to get some help if they'll recognize that there's a problem. And if you have a problem with drinking, go to AA.
Mm-hmm.
Go to NA. If you have a problem with drugs, go talk to somebody. Don't take it out on your kids.
I will agree completely. I think the ability to reach out for help, I very rarely have seen a department case go from the investigation and safety plan stage to litigation removal, where the parents have the humility to seek the help they need and get the child maybe in an environment that is a little better for a season. Usually that does it. I mean, how many cases have you had where, like, the primary parent calls CPS on the non-primary parent and it doesn't go anywhere? Why? Because the child's safe. The child's with the parent that doesn't have a problem. And I don't mean that to do what you just said and abuse the system, but understand if the child's safe, they tend to stay out of the way. And so if you want to avoid the litigation, keep the child safe, have the humility to seek the help you need. The one I'll add is one of my success stories I had was a gentleman that a veteran who had seen action and seen death and seen horrors overseas, and was with the VA. And of course, we know the wheels for them turned kind of slow for their mental health. Had a bad cocktail. His new cocktail of psych drugs just wasn't working for him. And sure enough, he was a different person then. The department gets involved. Takes about 3 or 4 months under motion to participate before they finally remove. But that same time, he got another appointment with the VA. They changed his drugs, and 2 months later, he was fine. And kids are unified. It's all fine. But sure enough, had he had access to the mental help he needed, we probably never would have got there. And I wish he'd have had resources to reach, or understood what resources he had to reach out to get the mental health he needed. Because that was it. He wasn't a bad guy. Wasn't doing drugs. There was allegations of domestic abuse, but it was more him freaking out from his PTSD. But anyway.
We have Family Service Association here too, FSA, and they've got counselors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can go get free help from them. But I want to speak to DFBS specifically. You can go knock on their door and say, I've got a problem. I've got to go to the hospital and have surgery. I don't have anybody to watch my kids. How can you help me? Is it possible that they're going to go overboard and make things harder than they should? Sure. But they also can help you. They can actually help you. And you'll get your kids back, but they can help you.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to talk to them. And just talk to them and get some help.
I think when we're done, one of the things I want, and is I'm going to get from you the resources you mentioned. Obviously, your BLU House parental solutions. We'll have all that listed. But some of these other places, because I won't lie, I do this for a living, and I only have awareness of about half of those resources that are available to people. And again, at the end of the day, take advantage of those resources and get your family some help, or CPS removes and you start paying me $5,000, $10,000 with money you probably don't have to fight, and we could have avoided all of this. So I'd love a shiny new things, but it would be so much better if you can handle these things. And there's probably a lot more community resources that are out there that we don't even take advantage of, and people that really want to help.
That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's case recap. Thank you for that. Rewrite the case. I'm really excited. We go to Tiger Talk now, and I'm going to make every guest do this. I'm looking at Ashley, and she's rolling her eyes, and I don't care. Did you watch the LSU game this week?
The what?
The LSU football game this week.
Is he talking about watching TV on the weekend?
Yes, I'm talking about watching LSU football.
Turning on the TV and
Yes, ma'am.
watching football.
Yes.
I can't think when's the last time I turned on the TV. Wait, there was a Super Bowl last year, right?
They have them every year.
And in the middle, there's a show. Yeah. And
last year was Kendrick Lamar, who I'm sure you're a big fan of.
And they never let you see the marching band, and that's the part I want to see because I was in the band.
So if you watch a college football game,
LSU has a band.
They're called the Golden Band from Tigerland.
Yeah.
They do. Yes, they do.
Yeah, I'm talking smack about LSU, but I have to tell you, one of my favorite pastors' name was Warren Beamer. And his blood was purple, and his clothes were yellow, and one of his babies just graduated from LSU, has gone off to be a lawyer. But man, I didn't even know where LSU was until Warren showed me. So it's like, okay, now I know how many miles it is.
You went to UTEP. They played sports there.
Yeah, I know, but basketball was the thing.
Yeah.
And track.
Uh-huh.
And I dated a UTEP football player. So
Yeah, they have a decent football for the size school. They have a decent football team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, LSU lost to Vanderbilt.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. There you go. They haven't lost to Vanderbilt since 1990. It's 2025. 35 years. 5 years after I was born is the first time they've lost to Vanderbilt there. Oh, and of course, one loss. Everybody wants the coach's head. So, yeah. What's your favorite college sports memory? And I'll let you go.
My favorite college sports memory?
Mm-hmm. You're at UTEP. You had to go to some games. You had to do something. Or with your kids, your family. Everybody's UT fans around here. You have to have something.
You know, my favorite sports activities was high school basketball, watching my son Daniel play ball until he hurt his knee. And it was just fun to go and to be the mom that had the sandwiches that they would come to my house and they'd raid my house. And I'd get 7 stinky basketball players, and then my kitchen would be empty. And so, yeah.
My all my kids swam. The older 2 kids, the water polo and competition swimming, off season and in school. And the night before, they would have pasta parties, and they go house to house, and everybody just load up on as much carbohydrates as possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I sponsored the baby refrigerator in the coach's office.
Love it.
And I packed it with peanut butter, grape jelly, and bread, and stayed on there the whole basketball season.
Mm-hmm. Fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to advocate for? Anything else you want to bring up?
I think we've done a lot of marched around, and hopefully I'll get you those resources, and
Yes.
you'll be able to share those with
Yeah,
the
we'll put
folks
them on
that
all our
contact
social
you.
medias. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you for joining. So we can reach out. The people can reach you at thebluehouse.org. You do have a website, that thebluehouse.org. They can email or reach out to the website. Any other places you want to shout out to get a hold of you for your legal services or Blue House?
I think if they need a lawyer, they should be calling you.
Thank you.
Anytime you need me, if you need to consult on a CPS case, you know my number. I'm
Yes,
always
ma'am.
happy to help you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, that's it for episode 3 of Fiegel Files. Thank you again to Ms. Winger-Hernandez for coming on. Next week, we will have Rochelle Melion. She is a licensed LPC therapist and ordained pastor. We'll be talking about, obviously therapy for individual couples, the need for self-care, and a lot of other topics, and that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else we're there. Hit me up on all my socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the like. If you need legal help, hit my website, divorceessay.com, or any of my socials. Get a hold of me. We'll see you next week. Stay strong and go Tigers.